Hello, all. Let's see. Where's the show? Where's the show? Where's the show? Where's the show? Pillage. There's the Pillage show. Good morning. Whoops. Sorry about that. Let's see. Happy Monday. Poor Hooker Bear lost his wrench and is telling people it's because no one likes the truth. That secretly, all of us hate the truth except for Hooker Bear. And because he spoke the truth, we punished him by taking his wrench. And that's the only reason why it happened. I encourage you to keep that story going and see how well that does, Hooker Bear. I'm under the impression that whoever gives out the wrenches is like extremely generous with wrenches, like so generous even that it's almost like you get a wrench by default, and that somehow something must seriously happen, because I barely even get into the chat. I'm usually trying to focus on getting a message out. And I use these times to explain, to prep for the show. And I get to see these little conversations sometimes. And I think it's funny that it's like, no, I lost my wrench because I told the truth. And that everyone here doesn't like the truth. And so therefore I was punished. And it's actually why I like this wrench experiment. I think it's great because it brings this out in all of us, where we find this we use it as a tool to either better ourselves or worse ourselves, either one, right? Hey, Berserker Bear, thanks for the morning chat. Hey, James, Bears shared on the twat. That's right, twatter. The twatter. So good day, y'all. It would be wise for me to tell you that I had a long day yesterday, like a lot of streaming. I could be a little bit edgy today. That could happen. If you guys need me to wear a hat, I've got it right here. It's no problem. I'm happy to do that for you. I've been wearing this shirt since Wednesday. So anyone making comments, I just want to clarify that it's been actually since Wednesday. It hasn't been, oh, he wore that shirt before. It's been pretty much since Wednesday, I think. Lots of great discussions yesterday. Benjamin Baldwin and I did finally talk. However, it was on the Jimmy Brent radio show. You guys can check that out. I will have a link in the description. Marty Leeds, had a chat with him about Freemasonry yesterday. And yesterday I did the first ever patron conference, and I want to tell you about it because it's actually for everybody. The idea is that if you're a patron, you get a Zoom code, and you can come into the room and basically call me names, play a Hooker Bear, and say, well, I was trying to find the truth, but James stopped me because he secretly worships Saturn and he wants everyone else to secretly lick the taint of evil, and I was in here trying to stop him, and he didn't ban me. He didn't time me out. He took my wrench away. And clearly that's a sign that he's a Saturn worshiper. And so you could come in and do this if you want. All I ask is that if you want to come in and yell epitaphs at me, that you need to be a patron. However, I'm taking these patron talks and publishing them to the web if it's appropriate. If it's appropriate, because it could be that someone comes in and actually asks something really personal. And if it's like really personal and it doesn't seem like that it should really be shared, I won't be sharing it. So it's a private conference with the thought that maybe we could publish the discussion if it was fruitful. In the past, I've actually, it's on my website, I've offered consulting to people only because I used to do this energy work stuff. When I say that, I'm talking about confidence work. I'm talking about all these fields that I've introduced you guys to before in society. I I've offered consultation in this if you wanted to work on individual stuff. And as soon as I started publicly saying that, I can't believe how much hate I got from people, either suggesting that I have to do this for free, or that if I do it, it must be because I'm out for money. So I've actually stopped even talking about it. I realize I'm talking about it right now, but it's just not, it's not worth it. It's not. But I do think that there is an environment where people could come together and converse with each other, and in that conversation could find blockages in themselves. I used to do this in the wilderness camp. It's why I want a campground again. If you guys don't know this, all of what we're doing here is working on getting this campground, this anti-school, this place that you would come to like a boot camp. There is much to unlearn is straddled on top of the sign. This is a place where you come to deprogram. It's not a commune. You actually are kicked out. You can only come for a project. These projects are typically like a large topiary sculpture, typically like one of my dragons made out of bamboo. If you want to look at my YouTube channel, you can see some of the dragons that we built around the world. We built 6 of them. It's why there's a book called Spell of 6 Dragons. But anyway, all that to say, by coming together over a weekend to build a large structure that requires sweat, you induce a trauma bond. It's true. You induce a trauma bond through sweat that allows people to open up and share energy with each other. For example, Hooker could come in and say, James is evil and he wants to have commune with the devil. And I know this because he told me I didn't put my hammer back in the tool shed last night. And because we are all confined to this space where we're working on a project, confined meaning that it's hard for us just to leave, we're forced to face truths, and someone else could look at you and say, that's actually not what happened at all. All of us have agreed that if we're going to take tools out of the tool shed, that we have certain rules about what happens. And at the end of the day, if you don't put your hammer back in the tool shed, you're breaking that rule. You're making it difficult for all of us to have a shared tool shed. These kind of games that we play on ourselves by using the public to justify our own actions is part of what we need to work on. It's part of why it would be great if we had a setting where we could go to learn this stuff. Since I don't have a campground right now, I think these patron web talks are about the closest thing that I can have to doing that. But it's going to require some sort of sacrifice on the person who's coming into the room. Otherwise, I end up being, and I've learned this through consulting, I end up being a professional sparring partner for free, where people who pretend to want to better themselves will come in and literally just use me as a punching bag to perfect their technique at arguing. If we're inside this environment where everyone is sort of made a sacrifice, it makes the prana transaction more realistic and more holistic. I don't mean to be over-explaining this. The reason why I'm talking about this is because there's a literal science to this awakening process, awakening of yourself. There's a literal science to it, and it involves sweat, strife, and relief. In fact, the alchemical spiral of the 7 steps, which begins in calcination. Calcination is ignorance. It's realizing there's something fucked up about my behavior. That really begins the journey. And that journey needs to be inside of a closed dojo environment where we get to do things with each other that we normally couldn't do outside of the dojo. I had this discussion with Owen today. We were discussing the idea of Santa Claus with your children, telling your children about Santa Claus and how important it is not to lie. When you go into a dojo, you actually are entering into an agreement with your trainer. Your trainer is allowed to do things to you that if he was to do to you out in public without the dojo atmosphere, they would be considered immoral. They would be considered wrong. Training your discernment is only going to come through lies, through having someone lie to you enough to where you finally learn to stop trusting the machine. Whether it's intentional or not, parents lying about Santa Claus is, in fact, a mini dojo. It is a learning tool for discernment. It's a tiny gift of ball. It's a stocking stuffer of ball. That's what it is. It's a stocking stuffer of ball. That's a good way of looking at it. Now, there's some moral issues here because there's no formal ceremony that we enter into with our children for a dojo. Of course it's implied, right? Of course it is. You might even grow extremely intense and irate because your child almost sticks his finger into a light socket. Some of you might even spank it on the bottom because you want this short, sharp shock to come in to begin the trauma programming. That's how it works. And this is where purists get to say, James is so evil. Not only does he want communion with Saturn, but he's beating children now. But what actually happens when a child tries to stick their finger or a fork in the light socket and the parent goes, rah! What she is doing is introducing shock. To induce shock, you have to act elevated by like times whatever factor you want. Let's just say times 7 times the factor that you normally operate on. That's what would induce the shock. Keep in mind, it's not volume 10 decibels. No, it's 7 times larger than your normal base rate. Follow me? So, if a mom is genuinely calm, cool, hey son, baby don't do that, she has to be 7 times louder than that. But if she's always talking like this, she's got to be 7 times louder than that. This is actually a sidebar for some of you who are like really on top of it, because I'm not going to go fully into this deep thing, but this is actually how syringes work with medicine. If you're used to a syringe all the time, you're going to need a 7 times larger than syringe to convince your placebo effect that this is real medicine. I hope some of you guys caught that. I don't want to get lost in it. I want to come back to this point, which is that the mother has to escalate in order to induce shock. It's the escalation which causes the child to go, oh my God, something's happening. There's a fire. There's a fire. Something's going on right now and it's very intense, right? That jolt begins the trauma programming. You see it in the eyes. No matter what happens to the child, this child stops and is stunned. That's how you know trauma programming has begun. It's begun. Now, if you don't want to call it trauma programming, I get it, okay? But you're losing the message because I'm going to have to use that word because I started on it, and that's how we do with live streams. We pick a boat, we put our feet in it, and I explain how we get across. Halfway the middle, we don't go, hey, we need to go back and get another boat. There's not enough time for that. This is only 1 hour live stream. Trauma program begins when you have that jolt. Boom. It's time for learning. What, Mom? What did I do? What did I do? Don't you ever put that fork in there again. Blah, 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 right? That intensity, it cuts right through. Cuts right through these fields. Right? Like a ninja. Just chops right through. Goes right to the heart. You're going to listen to me, John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. Right? Don't you do that with that fork. Don't you ever do that again. And the child's just frozen. And what you see here, it's not fear. It's shock. These are different. These are different emotions. I know they feel the same, but they're not. You can shock someone. A woman can shock a man in the right dress. That's not fear. It's shock. And when you induce trauma programming, you are talking to the reptilian, the limbic system. You are saying, neocortex, shut the fuck up. That's a fork in your hand. You have no idea how electricity works. Reptile, you will listen to me. That is out of your purview. Out of all the things that you see in this house, electrical sockets mean bad, right? Electrical sockets mean mom mad. Boom. You're going to get the eyes. You're going to get the predator eyes. That's why the mom looks so intense. She's giving you those predator eyes. How? Because she's using her energy to bypass the ancestor, the task, the casual, the egoic, the emotional, the sexual, the elemental, and she is programming that child with limbic reptilian love. Deep, deep love. So deep that it transcends the child liking his mom. Who the fuck cares? That's what mom thinks. I don't care if you hate me for the rest of your life. I'm not going to watch my child stick a fork in an electrical socket and kill himself. You can hate me the rest of your life. I have a different approach to you. I don't love you son, based on your behavior. I don't love you based on whether or not you're nice to me, right? I love you because you're my child. And I'm going to trauma program you sometimes. This is why you can't have a code of morality. The reason why you can't have a code is because you cannot write down every single instance of this on a book and convey it to someone and say, here's how morality works. Because when you give someone that book, they believe that morality is outside of themselves and they have to install it. They have to install it by reading. Oh, the first commandment is this. The second commandment is this. Now I have morality. No, it's all good, man. I got morality. I got an app. It's all good. But morality comes from in here. It comes from the shame shirt. No, it comes from in here. Morality is taught by 1 million limbic events attached to 1 trillion other limbic events, each of which is overseen by the neocortex. That's where morality comes from. It's a constant struggle of what's right, what's good for me, what's good for everyone else. How does my empathy feel? How does their empathy feel? It comes from inside you, but we're told that it comes from outside, that it has to be installed. And I'm not actually even here to argue that. It's fine. If that's what you want to feel like, that's cool. In fact, you could argue that, well, the environment is outside you, so it's installing it. But I think your adrenals are in charge of your entire morality system. Why? Because they're going to reward you or penalize you depending on how you do, depending on how good or bad you are. Thank you for the super chat, Denny. Captured childhood moments. That's how we grow. It's also how we learn love. We learn to look through someone being nice to us and still seeing that they love us. Still seeing that why is mom giving me predator eyes, but why do I still know she loves me? How does that work, right? How does that system even work? Now, if you're going to get your morals from outside of you, you've got your work cut out for you. You really do. You've got all that work cut out for you. Pardon me, I'm going to turn off the heater. It just came on. The reason why I say The reason why I say that you've got your work cut out for you is because if you train someone that morality comes from outside of them, you are actually teaching a monkey what the rules are of the zoo. That's all you're doing. You're not installing it inside them. You're teaching them that they will be punished or rewarded based on their morality. And that's not morality, that's cause and effect. Cause and effect is not morality. Learning the cause and effect of the world has nothing at all to do with morality. These are two completely different skills. The moment you learn cause and effect of the world, you start to understand how people take advantage of it. You start to find holes. You find loopholes in the world of the system of cause and effect that you can take advantage of and use to profit yourself from. Most of us find our morality by how many people call us moral. That's where most of us get our morality. If I was to consider that my haircut was good, if most everyone else agreed on it, that's not morality. Nor is it a sense of my own personal style. It's a sense of what do others think of me. I'm not saying that's wrong. We are here to find partners, we're here to find mates, we're here to influence people, we're here to make friends, we're here to build things together. There's certainly room for the group and the tribe. Of course there is. Of course I want you guys watching this stream instead of not watching this stream. But I am not allowed to come to the tribe unless I am a brave. Unless I am a person unless I am full. Doesn't mean that it means I have to be rich. But if you treat any kind of tribe like a potluck, and you show up at the potluck empty-handed, I'm not saying you have to leave, but I'm saying that that's going to feel heavy on you if you've been raised right. That's going to feel a certain way. In fact, it's going to feel like you're not contributing. It's going to feel like you're draining. It feels like you're draining from the system. Some of you are going to argue, no, that's not what it's about. You're supposed to come in, and I get that. Sometimes that's the way it is. I didn't know there was a potluck, but I'm busy, or my oven burned down, well, whatever. Deep inside you, there's a code. And you're either going to feel like you've done enough or you could do more. And none of us can ever be in charge of that code. None of us can look at you and say, yes, you've done enough. Even if you've done enough in our witness, we still can't say that because I don't know. I don't know if the banana pudding you brought is enough. I don't know. You know. Only you know. And frankly, when Karen shows up, right, with 6 watermelons, and they're all plugged, and she's taken the time to make little panda bears, right? And you're looking at this work she put into it, and you realize that this is at least 60 hours of work that she poured into this, and you start to understand, man, that doesn't feel right either. You see her trying too hard. You see that she hasn't brought herself at all. She's brought her reputation. Her morality is her reputation. And I know this is hard for so many to see. It's harder than it is for people to see the difference between consent and compassion. So I expect to lose a lot of people here. Just like I did yesterday with Marty, with the Freemasonry. It's just amazing. And these things actually kind of tie together. And I think it's a lack of self-trust. It's a lack of, James, you cannot trust me to determine my own morality. You cannot do that. And I'm telling you that if you cannot trust yourself to be the origin of your morality, you have no responsibility, you have no business being moral. You have no business being moral. Because you're going to end up thinking that your reputation is your morality. And this is rampant. This problem is rampant in the world. Hang on a second. Where's that thing? If you look at all the looting that's been happening right now, it's proving what I'm talking about. It's showing you that morality is majority rule. And the people that are inside the flaming AutoZone are showing you where they get their morality. They're saying, here's where I get my morality. My morality is based on what everyone around me is doing. That's morality for me. And that's what happens when you teach someone that morality comes from outside themselves. You guys don't see, so many of us don't see the evacuation that happens when you turn your skin inside out. When you turn your skin inside out, that's when you start to focus not on pride, but on reputation. That's when you start to focus on cause and effect, groupthink, instead of how you feel. Because how you feel when you're around other people is more important to you than how you feel when you're alone. That's how you know the inversion has set. The inversion sets when someone is not comfortable alone. And think of how many people you know that are not comfortable alone. Think about how successful they are, actually. Seriously, think about what their reputation is in the community. You're going to find that it's always stellar. You're going to find that they work harder than anyone else. You're going to find they never fart. You're going to find that they build 16-story tall statues for the bake sale. And you would never, ever, ever suspect them of doing anything immoral. And they are the first person to lie. Why? Because their morality is determined by cause and effect. It's determined by how you feel about them. It's not about how they feel about themselves. You end up with Jack Posobiec, a guy on the Q team who's been squirting for any war he can find. And 17 hours ago, he's cheering that we're finally going to unmask Antifa and expose them as domestic terrorists. In his mind, that's winning. In his mind, we have to apply germ theory to our own country, and we have to root out the terrorists. And when you look at all the cities that are burning right now, I don't see the people revolting. I don't. I see inverted people that get their morality from outside of themselves, having fun in the light of a mass pillage. And that's why I titled this episode Pillage versus Looting. I think that's what I titled it. The only difference between pillage and looting is tax bracket. That's the difference between those two words. And like anyone with a high tax bracket, you plan. You plan ahead of time. Looting is spur of the moment. Pillage is predetermined. And we live in a country of pillage that's been built on top of a country of pillage that's been surviving from the oppression of living under pillage. It's a constant, steady state of pillage. Compound interest is pillage. Zionism is pillage. The lack of states' rights is pillage. Most every law that comes out of D.C. is pillage. But as we acclimate to it, our morality changes. Because people in Washington, D.C. get their morality from each other. The people at the Flaming AutoZone get their morality from each other. The people at the Target get their morality from each other. It requires a special person to have an internal moral code. And that special person is simply someone who's not inverted yet. That's all it takes. What is germ theory? Germ theory says the poison's inside of you. The inverted person turns themselves inside out. So the germs are inside of them, meaning they're outside. They're everywhere around them. And as long as they bring more watermelon sculptures than anyone else, they're good, they're moral. It takes a special person to find their morality inside themselves in the midst of an ocean of pillage and looting. And that special person, there's a word for it. It's called sovereign. A sovereign man. And ladies and gentlemen, this dude is a sovereign man.
Right here?
Yeah, they put them there.
This the setup.
They put them there on purpose,
Y'all know where
bro.
we at.
They gonna set them hoes right up on the rail.
Y'all know what building this is
Come
right
on
here.
now.
I ain't even gonna say what name it is.
Hey, where do them bricks go to? Where do them
This
bricks
is
go
setup.
to? Where do them bricks
We
go
gotta
to?
do better.
Ain't no damn construction.
Gotta do better.
Ain't no damn construction around here.
I see.
Ain't no damn construction around here. You just gonna set a pallet of bricks right there. Oh, okay.
Listen, I did jury duty 3 months ago. Y'all don't keep no bricks right there. Do better. This right here?
Yeah, they put them
See
there.
that?
This the setup.
They put them there on purpose,
Y'all know where
bro.
we
I
at.
hope you
They
guys
gonna
can
set
hear
them
that.
hoes right up on the rail.
Y'all know what building this is
Come
right
on
here.
now.
I ain't even gonna say what name it is.
Hey, where do them bricks go to? Where do them
This
bricks
is
go
setup.
to? Where do them bricks
We
go
gotta
to?
do better.
Ain't no damn construction.
Gotta do better.
Ain't
You
no
gotta
damn
do better.
construction around here.
I see.
Ain't no
I
damn
see you
construction
too.
around here. You just gonna set a pallet of bricks right there.
He's surrounded. He's surrounded in looting in a city that's been pillaged. And he's glowing. He's freaking glowing with sovereignty. He has a moral code installed internally. It doesn't come from outside him. It comes from inside him. Why? Because that badass is not evacuated. That's why. He's not. And this dude is the best apocalypse ever, right? Man, I don't even know how to point that way. This dude is the best apocalypse ever. He's on point. He's a paladin in a sea of monkeys that get their morality by what others feel about them. He can come in like Hooker Bear and say, I was just trying to tell the truth. See, he gets his morality by what are other people going to feel about me. I can lie about what happened and why I lost my wrench as long as other people feel like I've been mistreated. As long as I can show people that, no, I was a victim. It feels better to have other people paste that morality on Hooker Bear for him. It's a gift of Baal. And if he's still in the room, he'll feel that. He'll go home, he'll leave, he'll feel that, he'll whatever. Or he won't. He won't process it. But it'll build up. It'll be on his shelf. And I think the reason why it didn't build up in Hooker Bear is because his mom maybe was too ashamed of putting him in the dojo. With the loco eyes. The predator eyes. Don't you ever do that, John Jacob Jingleheimer, right? Requires this higher love. And it requires a higher love in yourself to believe that your morality is going to be stronger if it comes from yourself. It's a different kind of human. It's a human that Benjamin Franklin talked about. A philosopher king that knows natural law and doesn't need a constitution or a Bill of Rights to tell him what's right or wrong. It's built into the system. Right now, what's happening all around us is concerning. But it's happening exactly where we all saw it happening. The cities are not open, free territory for sovereign people. I'm not saying you can't go there, but you're going to have a harder time surviving. Those cities are gone right now. They're lost territory. If you look at California, I did a video about this called California before people started watching me, so it's only had a few hundred views, but it's outlining the systemic installed poisoning of the West Coast. You're pouring. Think about it. Look at Seattle. You've got not a needle share program. You have a needle distribution program where they're walking through the streets. They're using money to walk through the streets to hand out bags, 100 at a time, of syringe needles to addicts. Under the auspice, under the morality of, oh my God, you're doing such good. And those people go home and they're surrounded by people like Hooker Bear that have no choice but to say, yeah, what you do is really good because look how much you care. How many syringes did you pass out through the city last month? Oh, last month, 20,000. My God, you must really care. You must be a really moral person. You end up with an entire city council built on that motif, which is, how can I appear? What can I make my morality appear like? Can I capitalize on that? Can I build a government off that? And you're damn right you can. You take what was happening in Seattle, where all this land is lost, cemeteries, hundreds of years old, are overthrown or overrun with drug addicts that have just claimed the cemetery. This is our home now. This is where we live. And the moral thing to do is don't mess with them. We need to send in more syringes. God forbid one of them got some kind of blood transfusion disease. We could vaccinate them. we'll need more needles. And that's just Seattle. Look at San Francisco. Look at the poop map. The last time I was in San Francisco, actually I've been there a lot. I used to work there, but a guy was taking a dump on the sidewalk in front of Starbucks, 10:30 in the morning. And I couldn't help but catch eyes with him. And he was mad at me. I was the rude one. I was the rude one. And you have a whole city that runs that way. And you have that entire city that pretends like, no, this is the way to do it, man. Sodomy month starts today. This poop map and sodomy month, you cannot argue that those do not go more together. The capital of sodomy month, the capital city of sodomy month has a navigable poop app that you can download on iPhone or Android. And they call that moral. That is morality to them. The entire state of California has been sacrificed to Baal. Paradise fires, everything in that city, in that state, in the coast itself has been purposely sacrificed. Look at the fires, all of it, and it just keeps going. It just keeps going because of the inversion. That's what politics is. It's a bunch of inverted people competing for morality. Jack Posobiec has all the morality because we're about to unmask Antifa. And now that we've unmasked Antifa, we can squirt over a domestic war on terrorism. We can go in and close down these cities, set up a perimeter to fight and hunt the terrorists. And when you look at the... Guys, all the big box stores have been closed down for months. Do you understand how profitable it is for the big box stores? I'm not talking about the small mom and pop stores. I'm not talking about the ones that do not have insurance for vandalism or for civil unrest. I'm talking about the big box stores. The ones that build their own insurance company as a separate company. A company that can suffer losses while they still collect. Those big box stores have sat empty for months when it comes to employees, when it comes to shoppers, right? When it comes to commerce. And in 3 nights, right? In 2 nights and 3 nights, they can have a check for all of their inventory and the entire building itself sent to them in a month. And all they have to do is drop off a pallet of bricks. That's really all it takes. Why? Because so many people have inverted morality. They've decided that morality comes from outside themselves, which means we can loot, we can pillage, as long as everyone else is doing it. Does no one remember the perils of Rock Ridge? That was the worst slaughter in history. Rock Ridge, home of Mungo, the nation's first black sheriff. And what happened? A bunch of people who said, badges? We don't need no stinking badges. Were able to run into a town. And because they all came together, there was nothing anyone could do. It's a pillage. That's what's called a pillage. The rules change, and anyone who's evacuated becomes an animal. It becomes a member of the herd. And they start to behave immorally to feed. It's a profit loss strategy. And so I'm asking you to please consider that all the bricks and all the Antifa squirting is here to fulfill a desire for a lot of people that have no morality to live in the world of lockdown, to continue the myth of germ theory, except for this time the germ is terrorism. And it's not Tavistock doing this to you. It's not Freemasonry doing this to you. It's our inversion asking for it. Do you understand? It's our inversion asking for it. Hooker Bear requires morality only exists for Hooker Bear when other people are around. He gets to set the tone based on that. Someone who does that will never trust themselves. And if you cannot trust yourself, you're going to ask for more police. You're going to ask for more barricades. You're going to ask for more checkpoints. You're going to ask for a mega city to be built that injects money into you if you follow the norm. And you're going to love that. You're going to be like, this is great. And what you're going to see around us is already happening. People who want the system are going to flock to mega cities, and people who are smart enough to realize this system is going to destroy me are leaving. And there's going to be a lot trapped in between. And this summer is the migration of that. It's the movement between these things. This is a rapture that's happening at one footstep at a time, one garden at a time, one movement at a time. It's a rapture we all get to choose. We get to choose it. We get to choose what it is we want. Do we want to stay in the megacity? Do we want to build the megacity? Do we want to call the megacity? Do we want to squirt like Jack Posobiec? Oh, let's have a war with Antifa. Are you going to do better instead? Right? I know this guy's going to make it. I wish he wasn't in the city, but he's going to make it. So many of us are. And more power to him, because that's the only way we're going to win our cities back. But man, he's got his work cut out for him. He's living on the Death Star, isn't he? Freaking Ewok snuck on the Death Star, right? Or Chewbacca, whatever, you know? But you're on the forest. Some of us are on the forest moon, planting gardens, and some of us are deep inside the belly. But because we all have different apertures, we can appreciate that. We can still link up. Right? Thanks for the super chat, Jordan. Thank you, James. Appreciate your work, my bro. Thank you. Appreciate that. I've told you guys this before, that this is, so I can't call it Zionism, but the Zionism comes from the exact same spot as this does. It's the germ theory of government, that people are intrinsically broken and evil, but we can have the land of Zion if we burn enough buildings down. If we inject people with enough vaccines, we can have Zion. That's what Zionism is. It's built on 4 pillars. I don't know if I can remember these. Spiritual usury, trauma mutilation, the good is all centralized from a central location, and there's one more. It's the 4 pillars of the same system. It's in Islam too. It's in government too. It's in it's in all of them. These are lightning rods to encourage you to abandon yourself. It's actually not even encouraging you to abandon yourself. It's encouraging you to maintain yourself. That's really a much healthier way to look at it. It's encouraging you to have good posture. It's encouraging you to win the day, despite what's around you. It's encouraging you, telling you you can do better. You can tempt me with bricks, but my morality is deeper. Love this guy. Love this guy. So the difference between pillage and loot, right? Tax bracket. Rich people pillage, poor people loot. Rich people plan before they pillage. Looters loot on sight. Both of them have inverted morality. Both of them get that morality from outside themselves. Yesterday, I had a talk with Marty Leeds about Freemasonry, and the comments were amazingly. Some of them were amazingly bad, like, well, George Bush did this, and this, therefore Freemasonry's evil. But George Bush isn't a Freemason. And here's my problem. When we blame organizations, the people hiding behind organizations get off scot-free. Jack Posobiec isn't a Freemason, but he's literally instigating terrorism, domestic terrorism, and a civil occupation by the military. But he's not a Freemason. So if we're busy fighting the Freemasons, Jack Posobiec gets off. In fact, every human who happens to be a Freemason is getting off scot-free because we're fighting the organization. I wish people could see that more. There's certainly a lot of people that have lied to you that have been Freemasons. I'm not a Freemason. You can be a Freemason or you cannot. But if you think that what made them lie was them being a Freemason, I think that you're expecting that everyone is a product of their Freemasonry versus the actual person that's behind it. I think we're missing the enemy here. And if you look at faith, hope, charity, the trivium, the quadrivium, all the tenets of sovereignty that Freemasonry is distributing through books that you can buy in a bookstore, if you want to call that is the source of evil, I think we're missing our mark. That was really my main theme of yesterday, is we're not actually fighting the enemy here. We're fighting the fashions of the enemy is what we're doing. In fact, we're fighting so if you look at it, Freemasonry has a lot of Christian doctrine in it. And if an evil person's hiding behind Freemasonry, which certainly can happen, fuck, man. I know a lot of Christian guys that perform abortions and circumcisions literally every day. Or they call themselves that. So should I attack Christianity? Should I say that the problem with the abortion guys is Christianity? Why? Because 2/3 of them are Christian. Therefore, it's Christianity. We need to fight Christianity. As someone who's been pretty compassionate as far as looking at the Bible, isn't it funny how I haven't been doing that? Instead I've been saying, hey, I think that this would be an even better definition of Christianity. Let's expand this. Let's move. I'm trying to remodel Christianity. I'm not trying to say, well, we have to snub out Christianity. And I think that's what we're missing with the Freemasonry thing. I can't believe how upset people are in some of those chat comments. I mean, I get my own flack sometimes, but it's never as bad as what I saw when it comes to Freemasonry. And I think it just proves my point even more. The point I was making yesterday was that if you fear your sovereignty, if you don't want the vigilance, if you're not able to spend the vigilance that sovereignty requires, you're going to want to not be sovereign. But if you don't want to lose face, if you don't want to admit to the world that you don't want to be sovereign, it would be really convenient if you could find a service that would take your sovereignty away. You would subscribe to that service. If you feared the responsibility of your sovereignty, you would subscribe to a service that took it away from you and still allowed you to save face. You could create this demon that was always taking your sovereignty away. And as long as you had that, you would never have to worry about being sovereign again. All your neighbors, you could do like Hooker Bear, and all your neighbors would think, oh, James would be sovereign, but that damn sovereign demon keeps coming to take his sovereignty away. That's the only reason why. In fact, look, James has a sign up saying, I want my sovereignty. That is a service. The person buying that service would benefit greatly from having that demon around. It would allow him to admonish all responsibility and just point to the demon. Go, yeah, it's all that. I'm under the impression that that's what Freemasonry is, along with a lot of other things. We are looking for excuses to abandon our sovereignty. And we find them. We find them in words like Freemasonry, Luciferianism, terrorism. Yeah, we find ways to abandon our sovereignty in terrorism. We go, wait, oh no, there's terrorism. That's why. The reason why I don't have to burn calories and criticize my government, the reason why I don't have to go against the crowd and say, I'm not going to say thank you for your service, because that would be too many calories. But I have a service I've subscribed to that will take that responsibility away, and I can keep saving those calories by not having to question the military service thing, not having to question my own veteranship, because this new service I subscribe to comes with a demon called terrorism. And as long as I have terrorism around, I get to still say thank you for your service. And when someone finds out I'm a veteran, I get to feel proud, even though my job was to bury a bunch of landmines for farmers. That was what I did, right? I didn't do that, but it's we how many calories are we willing to spend here, right? What is it that we're willing to spend? Is there a service out there that can help me? I don't want to butcher my own food. Is there someone I can pay to do it for me? And that's what we've done with our sovereignty. And it's not the world trying to enslave you. If it was, you'd be in chains. You would be in chains. If that was the case, you would be in chains. But you're not. The world is trying to tempt you. It's trying to show you how important sovereignty is by making it expensive for you. It's setting a giant prana economy on this whole world and saying, what's your price of sovereignty? And most of us are like, it's like 3 cents. And the moment sovereignty goes up to 4 cents, we're like, too rich for my blood. Terrorism. Incubators and babies. Incubators and babies. Weapons of mass destruction. COVID-19. Polio. That's right. We get to subscribe to services like Zionism that allow us to stay inverted and to find these outs, to find these ways of avoiding these things. We got to do better, man. We got to do better.
Right here,
Yeah, they put them there
this
on
the
purpose.
setup.
They put them there on purpose,
Y'all know where
bro.
we at.
They gonna set them hoes right up on the rail.
Y'all know what building this is
Come
right
on
here.
now.
I ain't even gonna say what name it is.
Hey, where do them bricks go to? Where do them
This
bricks
is
go
set
to?
up.
Where do them bricks
We
go
gotta
to?
do better.
Ain't no
Gotta do better.
Ain't no.
Can you imagine what this guy's mom feels like seeing this? Like, I mean, seriously, you can feel the pride in her, right? You can feel the pranic pride in her right now. We don't even know if she's seen it. I don't even know if she's alive. But can you imagine? How proud would you be if this was your son? How proud would you be that you did what it took, right, to make sure that morality was installed internally? It wasn't taped on the windshield from the outside, right? It was installed in cab, right? Come on, how proud would you be? Of course. It's this guy is the best apocalypse ever, and we are surrounded by those guys. Most of us are those guys now. It didn't used to be the case. Most of us are those guys now. Most of us have that now. It's a great sign. We're doing great. We are. That we've always known this was coming, or at least if you've been watching me, we've always known this was coming. We've always said the best apocalypse ever is not an easy apocalypse. It's going to be a lot of this. There's going to be mega cities. We're losing territory in the revealing. And it's actually, all it's doing is showing you territory that was already lost. That's all it's doing. It's showing you territory that's already lost. And if you're going to stay in the city, stay in the city. I wish you power with that. You're going to need it. But don't forget that if you're in the war zone, it's not like that everywhere else. And you might lose courage from that. Remember terrain, guys. What does terrain theory tell you? Because when you remember terrain theory, you realize you can find solace by changing your terrain. And that's why so many of us are moving out of the city, right? We're moving back to the land so we can reconnect. Because we understand terrain theory. We understand the problem isn't germ theory. It's not inside me. It's all these inverted fucks that decide what's moral is what's the catch of the day. That morality is a catch of the day. That I'm moral as long as I can get people to think that I was wronged. Or that I had no choice, or this or that. This is hard work. This is Earth Dojo. It's supposed to be hard. That's probably all I got today. I encourage you to check out that talk on Freemasonry. All it is just asking Marty. Marty's not a Freemason, by the way, nor am I. But I've noticed that in all the research I've done, particularly about Albert Pike, there's this notion that Albert Pike is like has devil horns and shit. And I'm just telling you, if you read his stuff, you keep waiting. Oh, well, I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure it's coming. But it's like really deep Christian. It's not Christian. It's actually more deist. I didn't want to argue with Marty there. It's actually more deist. Which you could totally say is Christian, but I see more deism in there. But it's a lot of philosophically reaching truth from a framework with tools. And like I said, if we're gonna say that's the source of evil, we're eliminating all the responsibility from people that climb into Freemasonry and use it as a vehicle to do things. I can climb into, I can't, I don't have the clout, but someone can climb into Christianity and do horrible things with it. Joel Osteen is an example of that. He climbed into Christianity and he did evil things with it. I would argue that, what's that dude's name? The real famous guy. Kanye? I swear I'm actually drawing a blank. I feel like I should have known that. I think it's Kanye. Kanye climbed into Christianity. He started putting out concerts, basically playing Jesus. It's to me it felt wrong. Some people really liked it. But my point is that people can climb into really great ideas and fucking wreak havoc. That's why we need people that aren't inverted, that have a moral core. That doesn't come from outside them, it comes from inside them. Oh, thanks a lot, Steve. I appreciate you. Steve's done so much to help me get my word out, guys. He's actually one of the first persons that saw my work many years ago and said, people need to hear James. So thank you, Steve. Appreciate you greatly, James. We all do, I believe. I feel it, man. I've always felt that from you. Yeah, Kanye. Thanks, guys. So we don't want to burn down Christianity, right? I don't. So I would love to take Zionism out behind the tool shed and put it out of its misery, guys. I would like to do that. But I know a bunch of Jews in New York that want to join me. I know they're there. We can do that, and it won't hurt Christianity. It won't hurt Judaism. It won't. There is a solution here, but it's not going to be burning down tenets that teach trivium and quadrivium. It's not going to be in destroying morals and dogma. It's not going to happen that way. If we're going to start pretending that, yes, all it is good words, but secretly it's really deep, dark words, you're fucked up. You might as well join the guys that are claiming this stained glass window is here to convince you to some evil portal or whatever some people are saying. It's not going to get us anywhere. All you're doing is creating a little dogma chamber where people get to follow you around and go, oh, wow, tell us what you know. I'll tell you, I lost my wrench. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just trying to tell the truth and you took my wrench away. You'll end up with a bunch of little worlds like that. You know who that is? It's squirters like Jack Posobiec going, we've got to fight domestic terrorism now by establishing a on the street force to combat this with our own veterans, our own forces. This is an emergency that none of us could have foreseen, right? And look at how many people are squirting for him. It doesn't show it, but he's got so many more retweets than I have. So many more. Because so many people get their morality from him. They're like, tell us what to believe, Jack. Tell us what to believe, Q. Tell us what to believe, Trump. Tell us what to believe, Obama. Tell us what to believe, crowd that's looting. Hey, all you guys looting, do you think it would be okay if I looted a little bit? Hey, all you guys pillaging, do you think it would be okay if you told me what was morally right or wrong about vaccines now? Thank you, Web Red Poet, for the super chat. Right? We're going to find our morality back inside ourselves. Most of us already have. You guys are freaking crushing. It's amazing to watch how many people are already like that. It's so many more like that than a couple years ago. It's all this is doing is winning. Bears are falling out of the fucking sky in parachutes. Every time something like this happens, a new garden is tilled. I get a new subscriber. Every time someone says Freemasonry is evil, we need to go butt fuck these people. It's all this is doing is helping. All this is doing is making you stronger. All this is doing is making the truth that much more obvious to see. It's beautiful, Monday. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And being Monday, it's Loon, the day of the moon, right? What is today? There's a waxing moon, by the way, that's happening. You guys know that, right? What is today? I'm gonna have this out until I memorize it. Today, Monday, silver, of course, duh. Of course, how could I forget that? Today's Silver Day, my guys. My people, today's Silver Day. Some of you have silver, just like I do. And I encourage you to pull it out today and touch it. And go, hey, this is silver. You know, I'm charging it on Monday, the Luna Day. It's a good day for that. You're charging it from inside yourself. Kick ass today, guys. Have a happy Monday. You know, I've been watching myself, and I really could have groomed myself better. I just want to say I'm going to work on that. Also, someone complained about the flickering screen with Marty. You actually said it was a satanic thing. But I read into it, and I found a way to get rid of that. I have to do a different kind of share. So I just want you to know, even though you're telling me I'm satanic, I'm still learning from you guys. I'm still learning from it, and that's a pretty good skill, right? That's having compassion. It's like through your cause of Satanism, I can still learn to make my show better, which is great. So, all right, guys, have a great one, and we'll see you tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Oh, I will be doing another patron stream soon. A lot of you guys missed it yesterday. I might even do it today. I'm just gonna kind of play it by ear. I know you'd rather have more, leeway. But I want to go on just how I feel. If it feels right, I want to do it. And then I think ultimately a schedule will develop out of that, you know, like if it's every Monday or whatever. But I think it could be something cool, because if people could come in and actually ask things that bother them and watch us process it, I think it would be really, really big help for other people too. So stay tuned for that. I would love it if I never have any private content, just so you guys know. The patrons I have are so dope about this. I don't release a lot of special content to them, but this is kind of like the perfect way to bridge that, where the patrons kind of have something, but you guys still get content. It's a beautiful relationship. Speaking of which, these are not all of my patrons, but I'm really thankful for them. There's more. This is when you update it on a certain day. I haven't gotten the May stuff yet because it's too soon. So thank you to all my patrons, and thanks guys for being here. I really appreciate it. Go out there and find the truth, and notice that it was inside you the whole time.